Okay, we're live. We
We are
are
live.
live and in stereo. Freeman. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Small Talk, Substack Live. Oh, look at that. People are piling in. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. We are thrilled to have you, and we are thrilled to be having this conversation. I am joined by the indomitable, is that the word? Inimitable. I never know what the word is. The incredible Freeman Michaels, who is a leadership coach. First of all, he's a friend of mine, but he's also a leadership coach. He's a former TV actor. That's why he's got the good looks. Real estate developer, father of three. And Freeman is just like a great coach. He's spent like the last few decades helping executives rethink how they show up at work and in life. And he recently wrote I thought, a very compelling essay on Substack. He's new to Substack. I got him I got him hooked. And he wrote about Gen X and about how our sort of propensity to be clever and to be very good at hacking things has helped us in our life, but has also kind of led us to a situation we find ourselves in today in the workplace, where we are finding it hard to hang on to jobs and finding it hard to rise up. As the Wall Street Journal said, we are too old to get promotions, too old to be hired, but we're also too young to retire. So we find ourselves in this very strange and frustrating predicament where we are in our 50s and wondering what the hell are we supposed to be doing now? And so I want to talk to Freeman about that, talk about his essay, also talk about, he has great tips about how to sort of think about pivoting in your life and making transitions and adjustments to kind of keep up with the way things are going. So that was a very long introduction, but Freeman, welcome to the Substack Live.
Thanks for having me, John. This is fun.
Yeah, this is cool, right? So first of all, let's just talk about a little bit about, did I do well sort of setting up who you are and what you do?
Yeah, and as you were speaking, I was thinking that we've actually become the workaround. So basically, we came up with hacks and clever ways our generation did, to make life easier, right? Technology is supposed to make life easier, and technology boomed with our generation in the workforce. And now we're kind of like, how do we work around the cost of this, 50 somethings that are on the higher end of the pay scale. And as I said in the article, they're looking for, better, faster, cheaper, which in the minds of a lot of people is younger. Not true necessarily. And
No, totally not true.
We'll talk about that. Yeah. But this is the prevailing mindset. Yeah. So that's where I think we find ourselves.
Yeah, it's a precarious situation. It's sort of unprecedented in a lot of ways. I mean, I guess all generations find themselves, at a certain place in their lives where they're like, okay, kind of like in my not twilight years. We are in our kind of different. We're in Act 3 here, maybe, trying to figure out, how to enjoy the rest of our lives, but not have to work quite as hard as we have in our 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s. And yet, in our situation, we are dying much later. A lot of us don't have the kind of safety nets that previous generations have had, like all the different kind of things that have been set up. And so here we are. And I feel like I find a lot of my friends are all in the same situation. They're kind of like, dude, when is this going to get a little easier? Like, I'm working harder now than I've ever worked.
Right.
And I'm making less money and I'm kind of freaking out.
Yeah.
What is your take on all that?
Well, these are our prime earning years. This is when we have climbed the ladder, as it were, in the paradigm that we thought the previous paradigm, right? The world's changed. So what you're talking about is our generation is going, wait, I worked my way up. Now, I should be in a senior leadership role, making top dollar. And a lot of folks are seeing themselves getting laid off. I have several executive clients who have been laid off, and I can tell you a little more about what we're doing with them. And I just met with someone yesterday and sat down with them to go over what a coaching program would look like. They just got laid off and they're sort of in that shock and recovery stage. I have two fresh clients. I mean, we'll see. They haven't like signed yet to work with me, but I think they will. But it's really interesting. So it's a precarious moment. What we thought was the status quo isn't anymore. And what we were just talking about a minute ago is there's this, I'm going to use the word clever.
Hmm.
There's this clever thing of let's work around, these 50 somethings that are costing us too much. Let's find a cheaper, easier way to get the job done. Combination of AI and then this being enamored with younger generations, millennials and Gen Z even, to come in and do things faster and cheaper. And I think there's going to be a reckoning. We can talk a little about that if you want to jump right into that piece of the puzzle. But the article you're referring to, which I also read, the Wall Street Journal article, um, it was making this point that 50 somethings are getting passed over and that the baby boomers are staying in their jobs longer. And then the handoff is to millennials, and the generation skipped for senior leadership, CEO or VP level, is often our generation. So
I
it's
mean,
interesting.
it's interesting, and also just like, oh my God, it's so on the nose because we are considered the forgotten generation. We've been called the forgotten generation because we are this generation that came, is between the millennials and the boomers, much, much bigger generations than we are. And so therefore, sometimes we get left out of the conversation. I mean, literally, people sometimes will put up like graphs on television that don't even have Gen X as like as a generation. Like we're just blended into the millennials and to the boomers, which is incredibly annoying. But it seems like we might be now forgotten in the workplace as, having the top jobs. And look, a lot of it is just bad timing, and that's what the Wall Street Journal says. Like a lot of this can be chalked up to just having bad timing. But also I am concerned about it, but I'm also kind of optimistic that if this is going to happen to a certain generation, that it's good that it's going to first happen to us because we are, given our lot in life, one of the most resilient,
Adaptable. Yeah.
adaptable generations going. So while I don't wake up like thrilled to be in this situation, I also think that we're going to make it, and we're going to pave the path for other generations to make it. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Like, what is it that about us you think that's going to make us, that you've noticed when you work with people in our generation, and you've noticed about yourself that makes us the way we are?
Yeah. I do think there's a general optimism in our generation, that we can figure it out. I mean, that's what that article says, and that's
Yeah.
consistent with my experience. I'm going to go left for a minute
Yeah.
because, uh, in like 2016, 2017, one of the companies I was working with eliminated a senior leadership role, and they outsourced pretty much what he did, in a way that was cheaper, more efficient, probably more effective ultimately.
Hmm.
But they hired me to coach him for 6 months after. They offered him every opportunity to sort of reinvent himself and reapply and find a different role. And they tried to keep him. They like him. He's a great guy, actually. I'm going to call him Jack just because I don't want to call people's actual names. So for
You don't
Jack,
know Jack? Okay.
yeah, everyone liked Jack. He's a good guy. But in working with him, a couple things he said, some of this, I always say how much responsibility you can take. Like, how much can you own about choices you made or didn't make so that we can really kind of get clear on what the situation you're in is. And he said, I didn't do a good job of staying relevant. We call this in my work the expert effect. He had a certain expertise. And what he didn't see coming is that technology and other things would end up making his expertise less relevant. So
Hmm.
he didn't, from a certain perspective, diversify.
And
So
you didn't
for
stay up to date on what kind of like what was going on.
correct. He didn't. And so that's a really interesting piece of the puzzle is that, in my work with companies, I train a collaborative model of leadership. We say it's really important that you have expertise and knowledge and experience, but don't be the expert. That's a moment that's passed. We used to look for the expert, to come in and solve something for us. And the expert mentality has a lot of experience with best practices, but they have trouble seeing next practices. And while
Hmm.
best practices are important, next practices are actually more important. So there's something about having staying relevant, having a sense of your skill set beyond the thing that you do. Because if you're narrowed like that, then life becomes very precarious. And so when he was out of a job, his reinventing himself, while I think it was really important for him, it wasn't fun. The reason also I brought it up is I don't see companies trying to create soft landings right now. I see companies cutting in a more
Hmm.
aggressive way, in a less heartfelt way. So that kind of bums me out. Like, wait a minute, can we have heart? Like, it made sense that they eliminated his position. I wasn't confused about it, nor was he, by the way.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to see him land on his feet. This woman who I'm coaching, let's call her Trisha, and she works for a company like Dow Chemical, not Dow Chemical, but similar in market size and sort of yada yada yada. And she was a senior director level, had a team, got replaced by bringing in a much younger person, and then sort of she trained a replacement kind of thing. She kind of saw it coming, like, why are they bringing this woman in? Why is she taking on more and more responsibility? What's happening here? And they've replaced her now. She just got laid off maybe a month ago. And but this is where the company's making a strategic decision that's a bad decision. Because when she reached out to her entire team, they love her and they're like, we want to quit. We don't want to work for this new woman. Let's call her Sally.
Hmm.
Because Sally, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I'm trying to get some of just the pieces in here that we can talk about. Sally has soundbite knowledge of leadership, right? She can repeat a lot of, there is no I in team or whatever. She's got the soundbite knowledge, but she doesn't have the lived experience. And Tina's team loved her.
Right.
And so it was a way to save money. They're trying to be more future focused, whatever. But this woman is not as good a leader as did I say her real name? Whoopsie. Trisha.
Yeah. You said
Uh,
this woman.
yeah, this woman. So anyhow, and I can tell
Yeah.
you what I'm doing
No.
with her to help her kind of get
Well,
back on her
I want to
feet
unpack
and so
a
forth.
lot of what you're
Yeah,
saying because there's a lot
please.
of really interesting things you're saying. One is, first thing, this idea, this tendency for us to want to be experts, right? And say that we are experts in this. And this is kind of how we've been trained. Like, as a consultant, you are an expert in one thing and you will come in and help people. But you're saying that model doesn't work so well now in 2025.
No, our ability to figure it out in real time, to go in and look at the problem, see it more dimensionally. If, it's like if all you have is a hammer, everything shows up as a nail. I just did a soundbite after I busted Cloud.
Yeah.
But that's kind of true. Like if this is, oh, well, this is the thing I do. Oh, we hire Freeman because that's the thing he does. No, we hire Freeman because he's really resourceful and he can see things and coordinate and come up with solutions because solutions are emergent. Again, if we're using solutions from the past, we're blowing it because the solutions are emergent. They haven't happened yet. So we have to kind of position ourselves knowing what we know and making choices, knowing that everything is going to be different than we expect it to, because that's the rate of change that we're in. AI is going to change everything. No question, 100%. What that looks like, I don't know. So we call it the empowered I don't know, by the way. The empowered I don't know is a curiosity.
Mhm.
It's whereas there's a sort of complacent I don't know, which is giving up. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about I don't know, but let's get excited about it and interested. And so that's the game from my perspective when I come in.
Yeah, so let's talk about because I think the people you work with, a lot of people who are watching right now might be in similar situations where they're either have just lost a job or they're thinking about transitioning from a job that they think they're about to lose because they can see the writing on the wall, which is something that happened to me where it's like I could see, I was kind of working in fear because I knew that at any moment my job was going to be eliminated. And I was right, which is terrible for somebody who has anxiety to be right because you're always like, see, I'm justified for having my anxiety. But it was right. I did lose my job because I could see it coming. I could see they were restructuring, et cetera. So when you work with somebody like this, and people listening who might be out of a job and now are looking, what is the first thing you sort of do to get them focused or not so freaked out? Like, can you talk us through some of the steps?
Well, there's a bunch of steps. So the first thing is there is an element of anger and grief, right? So I use a venting process where you vent, and then the grieving process is also part of what we do. And what ultimately they have to come up with is an empowered narrative about what happened. So there's an exploration of what happened. Um, And there's also just a big hit to their confidence slash self-esteem. And so that's another thing we have to work to rebuild. So I'll give you a couple early exercises. I asked them to list 10 wins in their
Mhm.
career, recent career, things they did. But sometimes we want to go back a little. It's okay to go back to earlier wins and really tease out, you know, what did you bring to the table? What made it successful? What were your gifts and talents? What did you draw out in the team? Why did the project succeed? How do you really own that as a sense of the value you create, right? We want to really tease out where your gifts and talents are and so forth. And then, so we do 10 of those.
Now,
And then
why is that important? Why is it important for people to have to see their wins written out like that?
because when you get laid off, look, there's a certain amount of going into shame, denial. It's like their own stages of grief. Like when someone dies, there's this reaction out of it, defending yourself, mad, blah blah blah, and
It's the
that,
stages of grief. It's the stages of grief. It's like
yeah, yeah. It's distorting
understanding.
reality.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just coping at that point. And
Okay.
there's a ton of fear. I mean, mortgages to pay. You and I have kids in college. Oh my God, it's a huge deal. And so we got to recover from that. That's the hardest one. My woman, who's at a company similar to Dow
Trisha.
Chemicals,
Yeah,
Trisha,
is it
that's who
Trisha
they,
or Jane? Yeah,
I don't know. I called her. We started, and then she said, "I'm going on vacation with my family. Like, can you add an extra week?" And her husband owns his own company, so she's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Good, take an extra week." So really, we're trying to get out of the mindset and get her head free from the shock. And she was there for 12 years,
so one
so
thing to do
no
is to
joke.
write. Yes, that's crazy. So yeah, and many of us, I have friends that have lost jobs after being there 30 years. I mean, it's really
Yep.
shocking.
Hmm.
And especially when it's the only thing you've ever known. And now you have to suddenly, go on LinkedIn and look for a new job. So, but writing down those wins, you say, helps at least, helps you get a little bit out of that state of shock, out of that state of grief, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're now seeing reflected back at you things that why what you still matter.
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to pull this little sheet out. I met with someone yesterday and I mapped out for them. This
Ooh,
is someone
real
who lost
time.
their job real time. First thing we did is create an anchoring statement. What are the way I set it up is I say, if it was your funeral and someone was giving a eulogy about you, what are the positive qualities? What are the things they'd say about you? What makes you so great? Right. So we tease out some of these positive qualities that we can identify with that other people see in us. And actually, those are the qualities we want to lead with, right? So I help them create a little mantra around that helps them remind themselves of who they want to be, how they want to show up, and so forth. So I'm a kind, generous, committed man or something. Then that's my mantra, and I'm working on that. Second thing is grieve and recover, and this doesn't happen instantly. It happens over a span of time. What works and what doesn't. List your top 10 wins, what they pointed to, gifts, talents, abilities, values, standards, etc., that made you an asset to the organization. Great, we want to know that. 3 to 5 situations didn't work out. Identify the key incompatibilities, right? As objective as you can, take as much responsibility as you can, and sort of what was missing, and really look at that. And then
Oh
what are
wait,
some, go
yeah.
ahead.
So let's stop at that. So you
Yeah,
talked about the wins. So
yeah,
but then you also have them talk about the opposite of the wins, right?
for
The thing.
sure.
Okay, and why is that important for us to see?
Yeah. So when things don't work, we have to move towards that. We have to move towards what didn't work, right? And take as much ownership for what I may have some influence on. What part did I play in it? And responsibility, the language is it's the ability to respond. So to the degree I can see it and own it, then I can choose. To the degree I'm deflecting and defending, I'm distorting reality, right? So we want to get really honest about what works and what doesn't work. And then the third one here, which is similar, is what are some minimum requirements or prerequisites for you to take a job going forward? Be clear, be as flexible as possible, but what are your red lines? So what are the things, that don't work for you? I have this
Right.
example. I had a guy who he was a middle level manager at a company where he'd hit the top. And he said, I got to do something. He went back, got his MBA, I think at UCLA. I'm not sure where he got it. But he quit the job to sort of reinvent himself, came to me to coach him. I was working with him, and we were going over what his gifts and talents were, the things that don't work for him, got really clear, got this job offer for the company. And he called me up and he said, okay, I'm going for this job interview, but I don't think it's right for me. I'm like, great. So what you want to do is be really clear on what your value proposition is, what you offer, and be really clear on what doesn't work for you, the kinds of situations that you're not the right guy for. Because here's what happens, John. When I coach executives, we do something called shuffling the deck, which is where we take these 3x5 cards. They write down everything they do in a given span of time, like a week or 2 weeks, whatever. And then I want them to put them in piles. The right-hand side is I'm good at it. I like it. It fits my pay grade. The left-hand side is the opposite. The middle is the gray area. We got to get rid of the left-hand side. Anything that you oughtn't to be doing, stop doing it. And it's shocking. Senior leaders are doing shit, forgive my language, they shouldn't be doing. Get rid of that. The gray area we got to figure out. So you want to operate out of the right-hand side because in your job description, let's say there's 10 items. If there's one item that you're not good at, that will absorb 90% of your energy. So all these things you're good at, you're not focused on that. You're trying to do the thing you don't know how to do very well or aren't very good at. Okay, we don't want that, right? So similarly, this guy goes into this interview and he calls me after. He goes, oh my God, it was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I don't think I got the job. And I said to him, congratulations, that's perfect. We don't want you to get the job that's not right. A week later, hiring manager calls him and says, we'd like you to come in for a different interview. You're not right for that job. Because yeah, I know. But we're thinking about creating a position. Long story short, they created a position for him. And it was
Right.
really along the lines of what he's good at. And
So,
and
and
so
it was
that's the
also
game.
because he was honest about what he wasn't good at.
Yeah, you have to be with yourself and you have to be with others. Don't go talk yourself
Not
into
only
a
good at
job you
what,
don't want.
yeah, not only what you're not good at, but what you just don't want to be doing anymore. Like if I don't
100%.
want to be writing 100 word, I don't know, like ditty things that I did when I was 24 years old, I have to put that out in the world. I don't know if I have to go to a job interview and be like, I don't want to do this, but I should know clearly in my own mind, this is not something that I want to be doing anymore. Cause I feel like, I don't know, that just sort of puts you in a mindset where now when you're looking for a job, you kind of know what you want to do. Now, part of me is thinking, well, beggars can't be choosers. And I want to get to the beggars can't be choosers. But hold on,
Nope.
before I get there,
It's a nightmare.
I want to say hello to some people. So, first of all, welcome everybody who's here. Marianne Bornhoft, she says this is her first time she's ever come to a Substack Live. And I'm glad this is your first. I hope it's a good experience. And welcome, welcome, welcome. Anita has joined us, I think, for a bunch of Substack Lives. And she says she just lost her job, or my job was, let's see here. I lost my job recently when health issues caused me to exceed my FMLA. Very painful. I'm definitely grieving the loss of health insurance, which is a big deal. I totally get it. Cobra is shockingly out of reach with no income. It's true. I've applied for over 40 jobs, nothing. The job search at 57 is miserable. I've lost confidence in myself. Dude,
That's it.
I
That's where
am,
we got to
yes.
go. I got to
I
help
am
with this. We can
Can
help
we
with.
please help with this? Because
Yes.
I am her and Anita. Thank you for writing in, and thank you for being such a great, being so honest.
Yep.
Let's address. We're about to get some free coaching for Anita here, so
Yeah.
let's go for it. And man, I got to sit on my hands. I keep touching
All
my
right.
face.
So let's go for the confidence conversation. Here's a little thing that I think is really important. I draw a distinction between confidence and self-esteem. Now, they are related and very important, but I separate them out because confidence we have some ability to work with more easily than self-esteem. We protect self-esteem, but we build confidence. Okay. This is going to be confusing for a second, but I promise I'll explain it. So when you think about self-esteem, like let's think of it, we're both parents. In fact, our kids were in preschool together. That's ultimately how we know each other a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly.
When we think about our kids, their self-esteem comes from the wins. Like they get an A on a test, right? And they're like, oh, I'm good at English, math, whatever. Or they succeed. They win a prize, a trophy or a ribbon or something. And, oh, I'm good at this. And we're really, as parents, very careful. We want to build their self-esteem. But the self-esteem comes from the outside. It's outside of us. It's things that happen that we go, oh, I'm good at that.
Exterior, right?
Yeah. And the opposite is true. We've seen this where, someone's light is diminished. Like they love something, they go out to do it and they meet with criticism or ridicule or whatever. It doesn't work out. And then they start going, oh, I'm not good at that. Oh, I'm not good at that. And then their self-esteem is really affected and it's really hard, especially if it's your child or someone you love to watch them go through this. Right. So self-esteem is one thing. Confidence is something we can build. So, for example, I can be confident in my ability to make and keep commitments. I can be confident in that, right? I always ask people, what are you confident in? So we talk about the things they're confident in. We find expression for that and we grow that and we become really confident in that. And then we manage the self-esteem. I'll give you a really quick, easy example. So as you know, one of my outlets, and I highly recommend having creative outlets, is I do storytelling. And
You do moths. Yeah, you like
right, the
moths.
moth is the moth coming up in LA is childish. I've written a story for it, and I'm going to go get up there and do it. But to practice it, I will sometimes go to open mics. And I went to one recently, and it's mostly comedians. And I was intimidated by that. So I wrote a little blurb for the host that says, I'm Freeman. I'm a storyteller. I'm going to do a story set. And she's like, okay, next up, our next performer, not comedian, is Freeman. He's going to do a story set. That's a little way of taking care of my self-esteem. So I show up in the room and the room's like, oh, he's going to do a story. Because if I show up and they expect a comedian and I start telling a story, everyone's going to be like, what's this? So I'm defending or protecting my self-esteem. And then I'm finding ways to build my confidence. So that's what I do with clients. We have to build back your confidence and your self-esteem. And it doesn't have to happen directly in the thing you're going to get a job for. You can build self-esteem in other areas of your life.
Such as
Reimagining
such
success.
as what?
Well, anything from a creative outlet to
Right.
how, as I show up as a leader, as a parent, or as a room parent or something. So we start to practice the leadership qualities and values that we want to embody and show up as in other arenas. Then when we go in for the job interview, we walk in with that as a more embodied sense of who we are. And even if our examples are how we led some, let's say project management. Well, I led the fundraiser at the kids' school because we've been out of work for a while, but we show our thought process and how we set it up and we can talk about it. That's the confidence we're building. That's the skill set that we're examining so that you can own it. And we want to also build your narrative about the wins. Well, when I was working for XY company, we did this, and this, what was really successful about it. But then also things that didn't work out and why. Again, you got to be able to do the range. You got to show up as authentic. So I'll stop talking. But the thing I was pointing to for the person who said, I've lost my confidence. It's been so hard. I've put out over 40 applications and no one's buying. So you have to go to work in a different way. And the work may not be logistically how you're getting paid, but you're working on your skills and your relevance and your self-esteem and your confidence, right? And then your chances of being successful go up exponentially. Because if you
Right.
get in the hole, it's hard. You can't dig your way out of the hole. Once you're in the hole, you gotta find a way to rebuild who you are and what you're up to, and find other expressions of success so that you can feel good about yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's really good internal work and very important. And I want to talk a little bit also about some external work you can do, or maybe stuff that's less working on yourself and more just kind of what I found in my own experience. First of all, just point of reference, you mentioned that you've been like no response on LinkedIn. You are not alone, and it is not unique to Gen X. And I want to write about this. But right now, I mean, it is, I don't know if it's because of the way AI looks at resumes now and the way the job hunt is going, and because there's so many people looking for jobs. There is nobody, especially Gen Z, millennials I talk to, there is nobody that is not going through the exact same thing that you're going through, where you're sending out hundreds of resumes and getting zero response, or sometimes it takes people 3 months to get back to you. This is like a very common thing that I am hearing. So just know that you are not alone in that. Um, and including my own experience when I first lost my job of just, like eventually I just gave up the sort of LinkedIn hunt because I just felt like this is a lot of time that I'm spending like crafting these cover letters and like, and then I'm not getting any response. Like, what am I doing? So again, I'm not an expert in like getting jobs through LinkedIn. I do find it to be very, very frustrating, and you're not alone in that. What I did find, my sort of solution was that I'm not going to look for that next big job to sort of replace the one that I just lost. Like that is not going to happen. I'm going to do a lot of little jobs. Maybe that big job is going to come along sometime, but I'm going to do a lot of smaller jobs and in different sort of aspects. So for me, it was like I'm doing some consulting, I'm doing some teaching, I
Mm-hmm.
am producing podcasts, but I'm also writing for clients. I have so many. I mean, when people stop and ask me now what I do for a living, it's embarrassing because I used to be able to just be like, oh, I'm a magazine editor. Now it's like, okay, you have 35 minutes? Okay, so I'm a podcast producer. It's like that. I'm like a multi hyphenate. But I
So
think that's,
I want to coach you a little.
yes, please do.
Yeah. So, okay, when we talk about your value proposition and what you do and what you're up to, we want to get thematic. So
Mhm.
the expressions are these various things I did, but the theme is more succinct. And if you can articulate that, then you say, and here, and I do it over here and over here and over here, but your value proposition is more crisp. And
Okay.
then that allows other people to go, oh, maybe you could help me with this.
So
Now, it's going
what's
to
a value
expand.
proposition? Tell me what that looks like.
Oh, I have a whole work process to get there.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I want to say one other thing that's really sort of interesting. So I was talking to a founder of a startup, and I can actually give you the link and you might want to put it in the show notes. It's an interesting startup. What they do is, I think it's like $34. It's a subscription, and they help you make your materials AI friendly. And here's the crazy thing. The AI is actually going to do interviews for the company. So you won't actually be talking to a person. You'll be
Oh, great.
interviewing with
That's
AI.
wonderful.
I know, but before you get pissed off, like there's two parts of this. One part of me is pissed off because it's unreasonable and it shouldn't be happening, but it is. So everyone take a deep breath.
Right. It's
How do
happening.
I want to respond? This is what's happening.
Right.
So, but what I like about this is what it's helping you do is hack the hack. We're back
Mhm.
to my article, which is
Right.
we're the generation that love the hack. And now we're like, oh shit, the hack is everywhere. And how do I hack the hack? And the
Yeah.
clever boy thing is like we're playing clever all or girl or whatever clever person is constantly being clever to out clever the clever. It's annoying. And so I kind of, here's the thing. I'm going to back up on what I just said. You can go down the rabbit hole trying to hack the hack. So there's something about doing that in a very compartmentalized way, right? You try some things out to see if they work. Maybe you go to this website, you spend the $34, you see if it helps you get traction with your resume and cover letters and interviews and sort of see how the system is being used by these bigger companies so that you know. On the other side, it's about your network of allies. So, I mean, if I run through this list with her, after we get from what works and what doesn't, we have ideal job, uh, role, life. It's a visualization I have people do. Constructive narrative about what happened because you got laid off. You better have a constructive narrative about what happened. And it isn't just they're bad, they laid me off, they shouldn't have. It's constructive. Take responsibility for the part you played and what you learned and da da da. There's a way of crafting this. Um, this is interesting. So the person at the company, Trisha, similar to Dow, her team loves her. And I said, well, get them to tell you about why they love you. Get some letters from them, get some recommendations from them, and specifically around some of the projects that were successful. Build that because that's your narrative and that's kind of your proof. Here, I'd love to show you these letters from my team about what it was like to work with me. I think
Also,
that's going to be
yeah.
valuable.
Also, sometimes I don't think people understand how they're valuable. It's hard to judge yourself, right? And so
Yes,
it's important to get other people to weigh in, and and not not like, hey, can you tell me why I'm so great? But just like, why did you like working with me, or what do you see me doing? I think that's a really interesting question to ask your friends and peers. It's like, hey, what do you see me doing? Because sometimes your friends and your peers will see you in a role that maybe you didn't think was like that
100%.
might not have come
100%.
through past your radar, and you're like, oh, really? Like, yeah, like, they'll be like, you're a really good interviewer. Maybe you should, lead interview, be in human resource, or you should do like something, I don't know, whatever it is your skill set is, you might not. So that has been helpful for me, where I've asked some people who I really trust, like, hey, what do you see me doing now in my 50s?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So after personal value
Yeah. Yeah.
statement, which is what I work with people on, is your support system. What's your network? So define your key allies, define activities that give you energy and support your vocation. Again, vocational, this idea there's something I'm supposed to do in life and finding expression for that outside of the thing you may have been doing. It could be applied, but we want to get a sense of that. So it's broader than just my role or title. Because that's another thing. When you lose your role or title, you lose a part of your identity, especially us guys. Like we get over identified with our job very easily. So we've got to peel that
I don't know
away.
what you were talking about,
Well,
Mr.
you said
Former
it
Mr.
used,
Former executive editor of Glamour magazine. No,
yes,
I
it
totally
used
know.
to be so easy. I could
Well,
just
it'd be
tell
very
people what I
easy to be
did.
like, yeah, now you're like, It's so hard to tell people what you do. And again, why is that so important? Why does it matter when I'm sitting next to somebody next to a plane and they say, "So what do you do?" And it's such a benign question, and it puts me into a state of complete panic
Well,
because
that's
it's
why
like
you
a
that's why you need this
value
very
proposition.
short value proposition about who you are, what you're up to. That's more themed around what matters to you. And then you say, and so that gets expressed in these 5 different ways. And people are like, oh, that's so cool. And then you have a sixth one because they're like, can you help me with this? And that's how they opportunity finds you, right?
Yep.
Because what you're up to, what your core values are, what you bring to the table. This just happened this is more of a friend than a client, though I've definitely been coaching her a little casually as a friend. She got laid off. The entire North America of this company that she was pretty high up in got eliminated. And so we talked about how she was going to put out her value proposition to her network. And she did. And very quickly, someone called her and said, can you help me with this? And it wasn't what she had been doing, but she's like, yeah, I can. She put together a proposal. She got a 3-month engagement as a consultant to work for this. It was a previous boss of hers. So that's another thing. Your
Can you give
network
me?
of goodwill. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that. I want to just nail down this value proposition idea because I think it's so important. Do you have an example of a value proposition?
Yeah,
Like,
I'll pull one up. I
pull
mean,
one
this
up because
is
I'm
this is the
curious to
one.
hear
This
what
is the
people say.
one that's in the worksheet that I have people do.
Right.
So here it is: creating your personal value statement. Give me just a second. My computer's thinking.
Yeah. No, your computer's thinking, and I love that because I think when people sort of hear one, then they can riff, they can do their own
Yeah,
kind of version of a value proposition.
yeah. Um,
But you did another exercise with me, which I want to try. That we don't have to do it live, although it could be interesting to have everybody do a little meditation for 5 minutes. But kind of like imagining where I want to be in 5 years, like imagining myself 5 years in the future.
yep,
Like where am I? What does it
yep.
smell like? What am I doing? That was kind of a cool exercise for me because, well, anyway, I don't want to go too far ahead because once you find your value proposition, then we're going to
Yeah,
get into the visualization thing. But
yeah,
you
the
think that's really,
visualization is in there. It's one of the things your ideal, we call it an ideal scene. So you imagine yourself in a particular way. So this is a little paint by numbers the way I do it.
Mhm.
Is I'm committed to what's your core purpose by leveraging my key assets. And so it's a little like paint by numbers. You fill it in and it
It's
gets
Mad
you.
Libs. It's Mad Libs for
It is
Gen
Mad
X.
Libs for people out of work. Right.
Okay.
So then this is really generic and it follows the formula. It's not the end version that I would say, oh yeah, that's your end version. But this is kind of what it sounds like. I'm committed to empowering others to reach their full potential by leveraging my coaching abilities, systems thinking, and communication skills while honoring my values of authenticity, growth, and service. My leadership creates value through building trust and developing capability in service of creating workplaces where people can thrive. I kind of hate it. But again,
But I understand what you're doing.
no, but it just follows. I'm committed to, and then from an earlier exercise, core purpose, leveraging what are your gifts and talents, your key assets, we call them, honoring my values of what are your 3 core values. So it's just like paint by numbers. But then we take that and we try to make that into a statement that feels more human and so forth. Yeah.
I like
So
that because
that's the process.
it's not the typical like I'm a communications expert for such and such company. I've been doing it 40 years. It goes a little deeper than that. It goes into not only what your core values are, and your core skill set, but also where you want to be, what you want to be doing.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can bring examples in from past gigs that you've done and so forth and so on. Yeah.
So
Uh,
the visualization, what was that one? I know I'm going out of order here, but what was that exercise that you and I talked about at one point where you're sort of imagining the future? I found
yeah.
that to be very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
So,
hoping.
I mean, at this point, it's recorded. I just send it to clients when they're ready for it. It takes 10 minutes
Mhm.
and you listen to it, closed eye, but then open your eyes to write some notes down or just note them in your head. And then when you come out, you journal for a certain amount of time and we see what you got. Like, what would be ideal? Because here's what happens. A lot of times, my language, front of the boat, back of the boat. The back of the boat is our story of what happened. The front of the boat is what we're up to. And we have to marry them. We can't get stuck in just what happened and how things ought to be, right? In the front of the boat is our vision. It's our sense of possibility. It's what we're pursuing. So the trick is to be able to talk about what we're up to and contextually frame it with some of the reasons or past experiences, so forth, that have led us to knowing whatever it is we know about what we're up to, what matters for us. And having these little expressions of it, I mean, little expressions of it is really valuable. So what you're saying, these little things I do that express something that I love or that I'm good at, they don't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a job. It's just this thing I do. Oh yeah, well, my role is the president of the school board, which I did, which was a leadership opportunity for me. And I took it because I could be effective. And I asked questions before I took it. I did it for 5 years, which was 1 year too long because COVID hit and I had to deal with that disaster. Okay. But anyhow, that's an example of something that I took on as a leadership opportunity and didn't get paid for it, did it as an act of service, but was able to really work out some things and it worked really well. And I got to pick my team and so forth and so on. And so that's a really good example
But you might
of,
not have done that had you not known what your value proposition was, right?
yeah. Well, so I run it through a criteria for what I say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing I do with people is what are you a yes to? So you're yes to and you're no to, because people pleasers will say yes to things they don't really want to do. And then they take all this energy and they're off trying to, it doesn't work. So we want to be really clear on what you're yes
that
and what
sounds
you're
very
no.
familiar.
Yeah. So we create a criteria for what you say yes to. I want to run through the rest just because it's really important.
Sorry.
For self-awareness, I use the Enneagram. I think it's very valuable to see personality and how that works. So
People might not know what an Enneagram is, so maybe explain.
Yeah. So Enneagram is essentially a personality test. I mean, that's very like Myers-Briggs or DISC or there's one called Emergenetics, except Enneagram is much deeper. It goes back to Pythagoras, and Pythagoras created this crazy geometric diagram of these various personality types.
The fact that you have Pythagoras on your desk is something that I need.
That's right. Everyone.
He says so. Everybody's got Pythagoras. Okay.
Here's why I think it's really important. It's the quickest, easiest way to see some of our personality traits. I'm going to speak in training terms. There's something called Johari window, and it's blind spots. And so we want to peel back the curtain. We want to be more self-aware. We want to be more transparent. And so this is how there's quadrants. The first quadrant is how we present ourselves and how people see us. This is blind spots. This is what other people know about us, but we can't see in ourselves. And this is what we hide. This is what we don't want people to know. So you pull, and then the fourth quadrant is our learning and growth potential in life, just to keep growing and expanding. So the goal from a leadership perspective is to peel back the curtain so we're more transparent, we have less blind spots, people can know us more and ultimately trust us more. So the goal here with personality stuff is they're a tripcord. We don't see our personality traits very well. And Enneagram is the quickest, easiest, most efficient way to go, those are personality traits.
Yeah, and I think for free, you can take an Enneagram quiz. I've done this. It's really interesting.
It is interesting.
It's also
uncanny
how accurate it can be.
Yeah, on point it is.
There's a few of them, and I can't remember what number I am, or I would share it right now. But I was like, wow, that's very me. And it kind of you realize how humans are. We tend to have a lot of the same traits. It's also really good for fiction writers, by the way. Knowing Enneagrams is really helpful because when you're developing characters, it really helps to know, this is how characters, this is how different characters think. These are certain characteristics of this type of person. So if you're saying, what are some of the Enneagram types again? I can't remember
so the one is the perfectionist, 2 is the helper, 3 is ambitious, 4 is the creative,
right?
5 is the
And you can be. It's almost like a horoscope where you can be one thing, but you're something rising. Like you have
you have where you go in stress, where you go in health.
Yeah, you're not always
you
just
have
one
wings,
thing.
which are aspects of your personality.
Anyway, so I don't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, the reason I think it's also really important is we don't have people conflicts. We have personality conflicts. So when you see the Enneagram, you start to see other personalities and how you clash with them. It's at the level of personality. So you don't want to get caught in what I call matching energy. You want to be able to manage the energy. So when you realize you're in a personality conflict and you have this kind of shortcut way of going, I see what's happening, it's easier to unwind. You're less likely to go too far down the road. So when I see like personality traits showing up and I'm reacting or responding is what I want to do, reacting is what I don't want to do, I can respond better. Because I've got this observer for personality that allows me to kind of see through it, if that makes sense. Like I can see the people through the personality and relate to them that way. Because I'll say one thing, if people relate to me as my personality, I actually feel misunderstood, even though that's how I'm showing up. It's kind of esoteric and weird, but it's true. So I want people to know me more. And again, we're pulling back the curtain on the Johari model to say, I want to be more transparent. I want to have less blind spots. This is the quickest, easiest way I know to get there is do
Okay.
the Enneagram thing.
All right. Enneagram. What's
I'm
next?
only going to give you two more.
Okay.
So we were defining, and we're going to call this woman Elizabeth. It's not a real name. We're going to define Elizabeth 2.0. So this is all about what did you learn from the experience as a critical piece of your learning? How are you different, transformed from the experience? What are you committed to creating? What's your generous offer, which is always a win-win? Value proposition is value statement, value proposition. My value proposition, this is when I work with in companies for leaders. All the key people, what's my value proposition for them? And this is a combination of meeting them where they're at. So, what's the win-win? And I'm thinking win-win. Scrub your intention, because our personality often wants to be right about our judgments. That's not generous. Generous is, meeting people at the level of win-win versus playing win-lose. Just get that in. So what's your generous offer? What do you enjoy, and how can you do more of that now? And then that's the define the Elizabeth 2.0, and then develop the Elizabeth 2.0 is how we build confidence, how we protect self-esteem. And then I use flow states, which is kind of peak experience. And there's a way to map practices that get you into that state as a writer, as a creative, but just as a person where you're optimizing how you're operating, right? You get out of your head is the easiest way to say it. So that's it. That's what we're doing. 3-month commitment from her. We meet weekly. She has daily check-ins, and she does these homework assignments, worksheets, and other things. And if I get it right, and most of the time I do, she pops out the other side in a very different state than when she came to me, this woman, Elizabeth. Because you come and you're distraught and you're trying to work through what the hell happened and how am I going to get another job. And it takes a minute. It's a 3-month process.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people in the middle of that will start to see opportunities coming in. But
well, I think when you start, working on yourself like that, things start to open up that you didn't expect to.
100%.
Yeah. And I found that. And, I think people might be watching this and being like, well, who has the time and money to be doing all this stuff, all this internal work? I just need to freaking find a job. But
it doesn't work. It
doesn't really work that way.
You can't panic your way into good opportunities. Yeah. You don't do it that way. You got to build yourself up.
And look at this as an opportunity. I mean, if you're going to find some good in bad, right? Like there's nobody wants to lose a job. There's nothing more stressful than losing a job. But this is also a rare opportunity for you to have a little bit of time to do a little bit of prioritizing and internal work. This is a positive. Like when else, when you're in the middle of your job, do you ever have a time to think about like your priorities in this way? I mean, you're basically like just going paycheck to paycheck. You are on a treadmill, endless hedonist treadmill. This is, you're off the treadmill for a moment here, and you're able to kind of take a little bit of perspective. And so at least think of it as that being an opportunity. Now, I'm convincing myself this is true because I know exactly the feeling of that panic and being like, I've got 2 kids in private school. I've got bills to pay. I've got mortgages. And so it's, I think you can do both. You can do the work on yourself. You can also do the work of finding a job. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. All right. So this has been super helpful. I hope to other people too. And I hope there's power in knowing that we're not alone here.
Can I say one more thing, John, that's really important?
No, absolutely not. Yes, please do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So look, a big thing about your success is that it's success in areas of your life. So my success as a husband to my wife, as a father to my children, my success in having good friends like you, creative outlets. So I'm caring for that in a really deliberate way. I'm building up. We're back to the allies thing. Who are my allies? And so often, I'm going to say most of the time, when people get a little space and distance from the layoff, they're grateful for it. They can go, oh, thank God that happened. Because I was really able to, like you said, reinvent myself. And my wife and I got closer, or my husband and I, or whatever it was that my friend group, I found myself again. One of the things I have people do, the woman who works, Trisha, for the company Like Dow, is taking singing classes. That's a thing I have people do. Take an outlet so that you can pour your energy and get enthusiastic about something you've always loved to do. Again, we're building back your esteem, building back your confidence. Yeah, it's over here in singing. She's not going to become a professional singer. She's going to go back into probably leadership, maybe again, managing an IT team. I don't know. But, and when I say I don't know, because when you start on this process, then other things start to pop and you go, wait, why am I over here doing this? I didn't expect that to happen. Because in the job, so often we get narrowed. Again, not just the definition of who we are on the airplane, but the things we narrow in our day-to-day life. And we lose sight of this broader possibility we have always had, you know? So I always say I'm sorry and congratulations. It's a weird thing to say, but it's true when someone gets laid off because now we get
It's
an
good.
opportunity to reinvent
It's
ourselves.
true.
Yeah.
It's that rare moment where life kind of is you're forced, and growth really comes in those moments. Unfortunately, and we hate those moments when they happen. But this is really where growth happens. I was just watching the Billy Joel documentary,
Oh,
which by the way,
so
Gen
good.
Xers, I totally recommend Gen Xers.
Oh,
It is so good, and I see a lot of hearts going up. It is so good. But he's like, it's really in the recovery that he's had the most success. And so, if you're going to take it from Billy, he's had some success, this guy, but he's also gone through
yeah.
hell, which I didn't realize how much hell he had gone through in his life. And by the way, his best friend's named John Small. Hello, that's my
Well,
name.
talk about peeling the curtain
But
back and being honest and kind of coming to terms with things. I mean, that guy and his ex and his former friend whose wife he stole, the whole thing
John Small, yeah, he
is
stole John
John
Small's
Small,
wife.
so humanized. Like,
Yeah.
I want to hug that guy. So that's actually a really good description of someone who's kind of done the work to reinvent themselves and see themselves more clearly and more honestly. They become like trustworthy. Like you want to sit next to them at the dinner table. Like, like at a party, you're like, I want to sit next to that person. They're more human. They're more, I say more real. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we want. We want to become real about who we are and what we're up to and what we've been through so that we can hold it in a way that's generous. And then people want more of that.
Yep. Yep. So great. There's so much valuable information here. And by the way, I'm going to repost this. So if you missed, I have see Christine asked if you could repeat the last 3 steps. You can rewatch it. I mean, I can have you do that quickly, but you want to tell what the last 3 steps are real quick.
I'm not sure. Maybe awareness. And then I was saying, define Elizabeth 2.0, define what it is. And then we're going to develop it. So
Right.
those are the last 3.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to repost this so you guys can watch it again and again and again. But also, we're here to take some questions. So I don't know if anybody wants to step in and ask questions while I've got Freeman here. I use AI to tailor my resume to the job requirements so that I insert the keywords. Yeah, AI is definitely super helpful in job hunting, and as Freeman said, now AI is now interviewing people. That's wonderful. So understanding AI is and using AI keywords, it's definitely important. I mean, you can do, again. This is all part of that kind of clevering and hacking the system, and I get it, and it's really important. It is important to know about how to do that stuff, but I think even more important stuff is understanding what you want, so you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again, or find yourself in a position that is going to last another 3 months and you're going to be miserable, right?
So I would also offer more than one strategy. So the strategy of trying to figure out the hacks is great. Then I would also do another strategy of going out to meet people.
Mm-hmm.
And just again, if you do the work I'm talking about, you become really good at your personal narrative and you just go meet people and talk about what you're up to and talk about what you're,
That's so
and
smart.
that's still how we get
Just
jobs.
have coffee.
Yeah.
Most of my jobs have come through my network and not through freaking
Totally.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Totally. I don't advertise, John.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, you got to market yourself. I mean, no, people know me. It's the old wait for the phone to ring. Not exactly, but I mean, that's how I've worked, is that it's all relationship based. It's the people who know me and call me.
And some people, that's not natural.
Me.
And so for some people, that's not a natural thing
Good
to be
point.
like, to go out and have coffee. But, maybe just having a cup of coffee or just saying, hey, do you have a few minutes? I'd love to jump on the phone with you and find out what you've been up to. And I just think it's a really good way to connect. And again, these connections, just making that connection is unbelievable what will come out of it. I mean, I think for a few jobs ago, I was connecting with a guy that I had hired gave him his first job, and I was out of a job, and I was talking to him about, I just lost my job, and I just connected with him, and he's like, oh, we might have something here. And it's sort of like it was great that the guy that I gave his first job to then ended up
I
hiring
love
me,
that.
15
I
years
love that.
later. What's up, Dan Bova?
I got to answer
So
this one. There's one that popped up. I've got to answer because
okay,
it's
go
an
ahead.
actor. Okay. How to stay playful when it's a business riff like rejection. I'm an actor. Um, okay. So here's the thing. Creative outlets critical that are not acting so that you're doing something where you get to be creative and the stakes aren't the same. In terms of the acting thing, the biggest thing is to have, again, outlets for that you're working on what your craft and what your gift is, right? The show you're producing or whatever. So you have some agency. And then the biggest thing is it's a process. So when we go to audition for something, um, it's kind of win lose. We can't hold it like that. We have to hold it in a larger context as a process. And then we can experience it. There's no failure anymore. There's a learning opportunity or there's a pattern. You can see if there's a pattern, but either way, you're looking at it in a constructive light or context. I hope that helps. When I was an actor, I wish I knew that. I built my self-esteem off of win, win, win. And then the opposite would happen, and I'd start to feel like I was going down, down, down because I was getting rejected. And I didn't have this other outlet to build a sense of self so that I was embodying more of the confidence that was authentic so I could show up in those auditions in that way. I was trying to, you know, piggyback wins to build myself. And ultimately, that's a losing proposition from my perspective.
Awesome.
And
Christine
that
says
probably
absolutely.
applies to people who are not actors too, right? If you're
Hmm.
happy in this area of your life and you go over to this area of your life and you carry that energetic sense of, I like who I am, I like what I'm up to, it'll translate. And then people want more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Play pickleball. I did that. That's what
I
I'm doing
love
these
that.
days.
I
That's what I've
love
been doing
that.
these days.
I
And by the way, I'm
love
not
that.
very good. I'm not very good at it, but it's a good outlet for me.
Look at
Um,
hikes, bathing. I love baths. Like anywhere you can get turn off. I recommend people quit social media because honestly, the compare and the compete thing that's going on in our collective experience is not helpful, especially if you're feeling low. Unplugged from that, but not Substack, not John Small. Everyone else, though, unplugged from it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Stay tuned as well. No, I hear you because I mean, is it? First of all, we see it happening to our kids. We see what happens to them when they're on social media. I mean, we can see it, and
ah,
then I see it with my kids. But then I see it with myself. Like I fall down that rabbit hole, and I feel just so crappy. 30 minutes after being in that rabbit hole of looking at social media, I'm like, why did I just do that? Why did I just waste 30 minutes of my life doing that? Like just getting
compare
upset,
despair.
compare and despair. It's real. I
It's
love that,
real.
Christine. Yeah,
It is. So, what feeds you? What feeds you? This is so important. You know,
yeah.
what feeds you energetically and make more of that in your life and use the opportunity that you don't have a job to go do something you love. You know, not all the time, but I recommend if part of getting a job is hard, then you consciously compartmentalize. You put aside a certain number of hours a day to work on that, but don't obsess about it. Do it in those segmented hours and go do other things. So you're building your sense of self outside of my value is that I have a job. No, it's not. Your value is much broader than that.
By the way, what about gratitude in all this? Like,
I
and
love
now,
it.
now that's like a little bit of like a new agey kind of.
Oh, no, it's great.
Sometimes
It's
I get a
great.
little bit like, oh, gratitude, here we go. But honestly, I think that's really helpful. Like, just
Totally.
taking a time in your life to acknowledge what you're grateful for, especially when things are going really badly for you,
Well, and if you
is
have a partner, agree to do it together. So nighttime appreciations is so good. Even just what you appreciate about each other, because it makes you feel better. You're starting to take stock of the things on the kind of right hand side of the ledger, the front of the boat, what we want more of in our lives versus getting so stuck trying to fix or repair the back of the boat. Don't do that. In the front of the boat, we will handle and integrate the back of the boat, but we're not trying to fix it. If you fix it, you're stuck there. We're trying to move towards something and we know there's work to do and there's experiences to integrate, but where we're going is more important.
attitude of gratitude. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Take 5 minutes. I mean, any exercise, even 5 minutes to write down three things you're grateful for today,
Love it.
or it's a really great practice.
And find a community, like, support community.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's another big thing. You have your men's group. I know you talk about that openly. I love that. I remember going through a divorce and had a men's group. I've been married twice. I've been with my wife for 25 years, but previously I was married to somebody else. And that men's group lifted me out of it. And I'm so grateful for that. In fact, I'll say this. My current marriage wouldn't be so strong if it wasn't for the fact that I had that experience. So this is the same sort of thing. Like find support for, you know, for what you're up to.
Right. Right. Love it. There's a lot of people like us. Hey, I'm even, one of the things that we're talking about doing over here in Small Talk is doing like a monthly Gen X cohort where we just all get together. We'll get together. We'll talk about a given topic and just like get people together. And even if we just meet on Zoom, listen, I'd love to meet in person, but I would imagine that most of the people watching this are not in Los Angeles. And then we will be doing local events too, I think eventually. But even in the beginning, just having a place where a community where we can all talk about stuff because there is power in knowing that you're not alone in this stuff. So yes, Christine, you are welcome to come. By the way, is this the Christine that I know from SAG-AFTRA? Because I know a Christine Bruno, so I don't know if this is the same Christine Bruno. But if it is, hello. Uh, um,
I love
and
that. I
and
love that people from various moments in your life pop back
they
up.
might,
It's so
but there could
great.
be more than
So
one
great.
Christine Bruno. Yes, hi Christine Bruno. I'm so
Isn't that
glad it's you.
awesome?
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Um,
That's
uh,
your network of goodwill, by the way, John Small. Because again, you and I know each other from our kids being in preschool together. Are you kidding me? They end up in high school
right.
together. We're like, hey, I know
And
you.
and
Right.
I
But
and one
that's
of my jobs
goodwill.
is that I produce the SAG After podcast, and Christine has been a guest, a wonderful guest. So I love that we're connecting in this way too. It's great. All right, we're coming in on our hour.
Okay.
This has been a fabulous conversation. More to be continued. We'll bring Freeman back to talk about more topics. If you like what you're listening to, please take this moment to subscribe to Small Talk, also to Freeman, who I just um, invited onto Substack, got him excited about. Hoping he'll be more kind of a frequent contributor to Substack. Sorry, now I put the pressure on for you too. But anyway, subscribe to Freeman's channel too. I have, as part of one of my little side hustles, I've started creating merch that I think that my listeners and readers will like. And one of my things,
Show it off. Show it
I'm
off.
showing it off.
Go.
All right, here we go.
This is your
my
modeling.
okay.
Oh, Lenny and Squiggy.
Lenny and Squiggy 2025. I've
So
decided that I want to
good.
create I have merch that I think is funny that we would wear. We talked about Billy Joel. I have a Billy Joel shirt. Anyway, my merch store is connected to my Substack. It just says merch on the top of my Small Talk Substack. You can another one I've got here is Gen X Files. So anyway, not to be too much of a salesperson here, but I just wanted you guys to be aware that I'm selling some merch.
I love that you're selling merch. And I love
Yeah.
that shirt. I love
Lenny and
that
Squiggy.
shirt.
I had a lot of ideas.
This
Should I
is
do should I
so
do Mork and Mindy?
No,
But
no, Lenny
something about Lenny and
Squiggy.
Squiggy. Only a certain amount of people in the world will even know what the fuck I'm talking about,
It's
and
fantastic.
probably everybody watching this knows who the hell Lenny and Squiggy are. My kids have absolutely no idea what this means, and
Okay,
that's
one of
fine
the
with me.
things I love about you, John, is how much you do love our generation. Like the
I love
MTV
it,
stuff, the whole
love it.
thing. Yeah, it's so good. And we
I love
need
it.
to. We need to love our generation. That's another
Yeah.
thing. It shows like we're okay. We've been through a lot. We'll get through this. We're a good generation.
It's a very good generation. I'm very proud to be a part of Gen X and wouldn't want it any other way. And man, did we make some good music and some great movies, and we wrote some great books and have some great actors. And yeah, there's been a few dark spots in our generation. For the most part, it's been pretty good. All right, I will let us go. Soap, Laverne and Shirley, yay, Soap, great show. In fact, I think somebody that we went to preschool, her dad was on Soap. Just a coincidence, remember? I don't know. Anyway, listen, bye guys. We'll see. I hope next Friday. I'm going to try to find a new guest. I know 2 weeks from now we're going to have Lori Majewski on. Lori Majewski is on Sirius XM. She's a big like 80s fan and does a ton of content about the 80s and about 80s music. So I'm excited to talk to her. And I got a lot of guests coming up. And we're going to also have Freeman back. So take care. We will repost this soon, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.